Alright, so what we're going to be talking about today is the quadratic formula. And in case you don't know what the quadratic formula is, that's going to be this little formula you see right here on your notes page. It says solve a quadratic function using the quadratic formula. And that quadratic formula, here's the nice part. No matter what you're doing, you will always have this formula. The formula will be on your formula sheet for the EOC. It'll be on your formula sheet for the test. It'll even be on this formula sheet right here so that you can look at it on your homework tonight or your classwork this afternoon. So really the formula is always going to be there, so there's no need to memorize it. But what you do need to know is that this formula is going to do the same thing solving by factoring does. The only difference is that with this formula, we're not dealing with having to factor, or we don't even really have to have a problem that can be factored. This will solve any problem for us no matter what type of problem it is, factorable or not factorable. So let's look at a few of them. We're just going to go through a couple problems here, and we're going to work one together, but then we're going to work one on your own. So the first problem we're going to look at, and you can kind of write it wherever you got space. I'm going to write it over here to the side, but it's going to be x squared minus 11x plus 19. And then let's make this one equal to -5, just to kind of mix it up in case we run across a problem that looks like this. So when we're working a problem like this, what we need to do is first make sure it's equal to 0. So to do so, what can we do with this -5? Add 5 to both sides. That's easy. So we're going to add 5 to both sides. And remember, we add numbers to numbers. We don't add anything that doesn't have a letter to a letter. Okay, so numbers go in numbers. So with this problem, we're going to see that -5 plus 5 cancels out, and that's going to make it now equal to 0. So let's see what we get when we simplify the other side. So x squared doesn't really add to anything, so it stays x squared. -11x doesn't add to anything, so that stays a -11x. And then 19 plus 5 is what? 24. All right, so what that does for us is it gets us set up into standard form, the basic standard form we're used to dealing with, and now it is equal to 0. So all we want to do next is we're going to start following this page. So now we're going to start finding A, B, and C. So that's something we're accustomed to. We know that A is the first number, which is what? 1. B is going to be the next number, next to the x, which is -11. And C is going to be equal to 24. So identifying A, B, and C is very simple. We just look at the numbers, how they fall, as long as we got it written in standard form. And then now what we're going to do is get into the actual formula. So with this formula, what we're going to do, and you'll see on your notes page, these letters are they're kind of written kind of faded, right? And with the faded part, we're going to be able to go in and actually write in a number on top of those. So that you just do what I do and we'll write them in. So for this B, right now we're starting off, we have negative and then parentheses around a B. So that B is going to become what? -11. So we're going to put a -11 inside that parentheses. So just take that -11 and put it inside the parentheses for that B. Then after that, we have plus or minus the square root of B. Now, once again, another B. We know B is -11. So in that little blank, we're going to write down another -11. From there, we have squared minus 4 parentheses A. So A is going to be 1. So we're going to write a 1 in there for A. And then on the other one, we've got times C. C is going to be 24. So we're going to write in our 24. And then that's all going to be divided by 2 times A, which we already said A is 1. So it's just substitution. It's really just taking a number and substituting it in, or if you like to say plugging it in to the problem. We're not doing anything new here. It's not new math that we're really doing. It's just substitution, and now we're going to solve. Okay, so let's look at how we would solve. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say negative times -11. So what's a negative times a negative? Positive. So negative times a -11 is going to make it a positive 11. So that's going to be the first number we're going to go with. The second number we're going to go with is this 2 times 1. What's 2 times 1? 2. And then you see how all of this is circled? You see how all of that is circled there? We're going to take everything that's circled, and we're going to use a calculator to help us get an answer. So on this circle part, we're going to leave off the radical, and we're just going to type in the numbers in the parentheses part. So here we've got parentheses, so I'm going to start off with parentheses, negative 11, parentheses, squared, minus 4, parentheses, 1, parentheses, 24. And then when I hit equals, it gives me the number 25. So that's what I'm going to write down. And essentially what I'm doing here is I'm just simplifying the numbers that I have here into a 25. It makes it a little bit easier to look at and gives me a little simpler problem to work with in this problem. Now, once I'm to here, everything else is going to be very simple. Okay, it's going to be very simple to break it down. So this is still going to stay at 11. So we're going to write an 11 on both of those because we're really just making this into two parts. We're taking that plus and minus and making one a plus and one a minus. So the 11s are going to stay. We're also still going to have the 2s on bottom. But then we're going to go ahead and break down the square root of 25. Do we know what the square root of 25 is? 5. So we're going to put a 5 in instead of a 25 for these two. So now what we've done is we've taken the problem where it was this plus or minus, and we've just broken it into two problems, a plus and a minus. So to finish this out and solve the rest of it, we're just going to take and solve it like a normal problem. What's 11 plus 5? 16. What's 16 divided by 2? 8. That was easy. All right, and then on the other side we have 11 minus 5. What's 11 minus 5? 6. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. That was pretty easy too. That is the ugliest 3 I've ever written. There we go. So we're going to have x equals 3. So two answers here. X equals 8 and x equals 3. So not too bad. Go ahead and pause the video so that you can write this down, and I'll give you a second to write it down before we go into our next problem. All right, so let's go ahead and look at a new problem just to make sure you got this. And I'm going to give you some time to work this one. So the second problem I want you to work out, and our last problem on our video, is going to be 2x squared minus 3x minus 9 is equivalent or equal to 0. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 9 is equal to 0. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can work this problem out on your own, and then we'll work it together to see what the answer is. All right, so in our problem, we've got the numbers 2, negative 3, and negative 9. So that's going to identify our A, B, and C. So A here is going to be 2, B is going to be negative 3, and C is going to be negative 9. So when we work this problem out, when we substitute everything in, we've got negative B. B is going to be negative 3. So we're going to write in a negative 3. Plus or minus the square root of B, which is negative 3, squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is negative 9. And then on bottom, we've got 2 times A, which is going to be 2. So to simplify this and to break it down, we're going to have negative times negative 3, which is going to make a positive 3. We're going to have 2 times 2, which is going to give us 4. And then we're going to use our calculator to determine what our other answer is going to be. So in this problem, we're going to have parentheses negative 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 9. And when we do that, we're going to solve this part in the circle and get 81. So to solve this and to finish working it out, we're going to have 3 plus square root of 81 is 9, and then 4 divided by 4. On the other side, we're going to have 3 minus 9 divided by 4. So to solve this and work it out, we'll do the simple math. 3 plus 9 is going to be 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. So the first answer is nice and clean. The second answer is a little rougher. 3 minus 9 is going to give us negative 6. So negative 6 divided by 4 is going to reduce down to negative 3 divided by 2. So with that one, we end up with a fraction answer, which on these problems, we can end up with a problem that is a fraction answer. That will happen from time to time. Sometimes both of them will be fractions. Sometimes just one will be a fraction. It depends on the problem, just like with any other factoring problem, how that works out. So with these questions, we've got our A, B, and C. We substitute them into the equation. We simplify the equation and solve them. Pretty simple. If you have any questions on this, feel free to ask me. You can email me, or you can ask me in the end of class, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you do have.